Pro Audio Secrets, a show that helps you to find your own voice in sound.
People actually want to work with me. I'm a first-class music engineer. Do you want to hire me? Should you make your biggest passion become your job? Because there is a realistic chance that you will destroy your passion while trying to make it become your job. No, that's not an option. People try to sell you a guaranteed way to make it in the music industry, then that's a lie and a cash grab. During the last 5 years, my income roundabout always doubled.
That's amazing.
These persons. I never pulled out my degree somewhere.
It sounds like a lot of work.
Client communication, negotiating and stuff like that. I don't do that anymore.
How do you manage that?
I don't know, lying. Telling weird promises and stuff like that. People like that.
No, man, it's not possible.
This also led to working with brands. They pay me.
My whole world, you changed already.
It's a win-win situation.
In today's episode of Pro Audio Secrets, I talk with composer Tobi Weiss, who is specializing in music for games. We talk about his history of how he got into music and what's the secret behind his success. So welcome, Tobi Weiss, and enjoy the episode. You are involved in many different work areas and fields of music production. And your main area is video games, music for video games, right?
Exactly, and that's also my biggest passion. So it's like the most fun thing I can think about. And it was also my main goal to somehow get there when I started, after school 12 years ago or so.
So can we maybe go back even further?
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and how you grew up? What role did music play when you were young, living with your parents? And what did you do back then?
I was very lucky that I grew up in a household where music played a role. So my mom, gave me her old acoustic guitar. You can probably see it over there, on the video. I just played around a little bit. I remember that I laid it on my knees because I didn't understand why you should hold it in a regular way. It was more like playing it like a piano. And just, made some music. Then, when I was 5 or 6, we became a tiny child's keyboard, and me and my sister played around on it. We were in the choir and stuff like that. And then when I was in 5th grade, there was an opportunity at my school to learn playing cello in an orchestra. And so that's what I did for a bunch of years until I sadly stopped playing the cello because I thought it wasn't cool enough when I was a teenager. And I instead grabbed the electric guitar. I really regret this today from an older perspective, but I also understood my feelings. I wanted to become a punk rock star. That's my future. But I hated being on stage. So that wasn't the best combination. And then around 15, 16, I also began to experiment working with DAWs. And it was just amazing to me with Audacity back then. You probably know that one. And just recording stuff with a video recorder because I didn't have a microphone, like a super old one, getting the video file, extracting the audio file, and then adding 20 vocals or something because it was something new to me, or playing it was a very interesting time. For sure.
You already started as a very young. You mentioned the guitar of your mom. That was then before you even were 5, 6. So you started as a baby already to play around with musical instruments, or what?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I'm not 100% sure when she gave me the guitar. I could ask her, but it's so I don't even really remember it, right? So I only have photos how I was doing stuff with the guitar, old, very blurry photos. But it's so, but yeah, it was always a part of us. Also, when we were driving into vacation or something, then we were singing in the car and stuff like that. So it was always a fun part to just make some music. And also, I played a lot of video games. So that was probably the biggest part of my whole childhood and teenage years, and still today.
Was there a pressure coming from your parents towards practicing your instrument? For example, the cello?
No. In school, I had to get good grades. It was my music grade. I didn't have regular music lessons in school, but I had this pizzicato class. So that was something, but it wasn't like, yo, do your stuff. And I was never very good. I was average. I was pretty okay on the cello. I was a pretty good guitar player. I was a okay-ish singer and stuff like that. So it wasn't like, oh, Toby, you should now practice 10 hours a day to make our family proud by making a music career. Quite the opposite. My father was always more like, yeah, maybe you should consider something serious and do something. I don't know. It wasn't like a realistic option to somehow make it as a music producer. My mom was different. She always was 100% behind what I was doing. And always was like, oh, okay, like years later, you want to try to become a composer? Okay, I'll do my best to support you. Sure. And also my stepfather, they were like supporting me during the time.
And when did this point in time come for you that you wanted to do more with your music?
I mean, so during school, creating instrumentals became more and more interesting to me. I remember listening to Two Steps from Hell when I was 16 or 15 years old. I was like, what? I want to do that too. And that was also the time where I don't know, realized that there are so awesome game soundtracks and that I try to reconstruct them as an exercise. I also try to reconstruct the Two Steps from Hell stuff. There I was working with Magic's Music Maker, and it sounded super bad because I wasn't good. I mean, I always was pretty good in listening to something and then simply playing it by ear. But still, I mean, the VSTs that I used back then were trash. And also my skills were trash, but I had fun. And it became a little bit better every time. And so there was a time where I thought like, oh, it would be so awesome to do something like this full time. But then like the real decision was after school. So I had to repeat one class. But then after I made my Abitur in Germany, then I had to decide what I was going to do. And I started at a regular university, something with informatic and electronics and stuff. And I went there twice and I was like, no, that's, I don't know, not an option, because I had kind of the struggle in my mind, which a lot of people tell you, should you make your biggest passion become your job? Because there is a realistic chance that you will destroy your passion while trying to make it become your job. And that's something that everybody should take pretty serious. But then I decided, okay, I want to try it. I want to go all in for 10 years until I turn 30 years old and make like reality checks every then and now to see if I'm still making progress, to see if I'm still happy. And that's when I also started to study music production. That was more like something to, for example, tell my dad, yo, I'm going to study music production. I have a bachelor of science or arts in the end. It's a better sentence than saying, yo, now I'll try on my own to become a composer for 10 years. Because it's hard for them to understand that you're sitting in your room where you also used to play video games and make some music. And back then it was literally only a laptop, right? So it didn't look like that I was doing something. It was, but yeah, so that was the time when I just decided, okay, I'll simply try and see what happens.
That's pretty structured for a 20-year-old to say, I'm going to invest the next 10 years and I will always make checks of how my progress is. And then on those evaluations, I will decide whether to continue or not. I'm really impressed by that.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's super easy to say. Like, because when you say, okay, now I'll try it for the next 10 years, then this sounds like infinity to a 20 years old person. So it was more like that should be enough time. That should be something that I will accomplish or something like that. But yeah, still, I think it was kind of a structured thought back then.
I'm just so impressed because I was not structured at all when I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
I had a girlfriend that decided to study medicine, and she came up with this plan of the next even 15 years or something. And I just couldn't follow because I didn't know what I would do the next day. And for me, it was always clear to be either a rapper or something with sound engineering. So there were always just those two options for me. And I eventually ended up being in the sound industry and being a rapper at the side now.
Yeah.
because the first 7-8 years of trying to make it in the music industry had been enough then. Yeah, but this structured thing is really impressive. And what was your experience then at university?
So it was one of these universities where you pay a huge amount of money, and I mean, I don't want to drop names because that's not polite, but for me, the main problem when I look back at this time is that they used sentences like, "Oh, come to our university, and then you'll make it into the music industry," which is a lie, because there is never a guarantee to make it in the music industry. I mean, a lot of people ask me today, what could I do, this and that, and how can I make it as fast as possible? And that's the first thing I always say. If people try to sell you a guaranteed way to make it in the music industry, then that's a lie and a cash grab. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you can do better, and that you can maybe learn from people who already have been through this weird and chaotic time of trying to establish yourself in the music industry. But yeah, that's a problem, a huge problem, I think. And I also think that it depends a lot on your personality. So I am more like the kind of guy who loves to learn stuff autodidactic. I don't know if you can say that in English, but on your own. I just want to sit down and analyze soundtracks, analyze dozens, hundreds of soundtracks, wrote down all my thoughts while playing the game and tried to understand what they were doing, reading books and so on. And in university, I only aimed for being the best in class and having my first class bachelor in the end. But I would say that for me, it was kind of a waste of money. So I never pulled out my degree somewhere and was like, "Hey, I'm a first-class music engineer. Do you want to hire me?" It's like nobody cares about your diplomas. And in addition to that, I have to say that I'm not like the socializing kind of person. So maybe I could have met a lot of people there that I don't know that I then work with.
Yeah.
But I prefer to be alone a lot. So I like that. My whole career is based on communication in the internet and being visible at multiple places at the same time. I tried this whole thing to, for example, go to conventions like Gamescom to meet people, but I was overwhelmed and just like, oh, I can't do that. So for me, university was, I mean, it was still fine because it was part of what I was doing, but for persons like me, it's pretty much a waste of money, I think. But maybe not for some other persons, right? So,
yeah, it can make sense, of course. I did try myself to attend such a paid music university, and then I went there for a couple of things to look into and assisted on a couple of sessions there.
yeah.
And then I decided not to go for it. And repeated my A levels back then, while having the idea to become a professional drummer, which was completely crazy.
Oh, drummer. Interesting. No,
Yeah, because my drummer of my band back then, he started playing the drums in his early 20s, and he went through the whole thing and studied at university and had even a degree in the end as a jazz drummer. And I thought, yeah, I can maybe do the same, because I didn't want to study there at the audio SAE. And so my next question is, did you ever think about quitting the whole music thing?
sometimes, especially, I don't know, 2 years ago, I think I dodged burnout super close. So like you can never say but I mean it happens that you are just like your ability to do what you loved a few days before. And it was a day where I entered the studio and then my body was shaking and I had to leave immediately. I was so burned out somehow that I had to just tell all my clients, yo, I need a break right now. I'll be back in a week or two. I'll let you know. I mean, I was lucky that it was a situation where no super urgent deadlines was in front of me. But it was crazy. And it was also, I think, the first time where I actually told clients, yo, I don't feel so good, I need to stop. Because you are always afraid that they simply go somewhere else. And you need to understand that or I needed to understand that people actually want to work with me and my skill set, because everybody was like, yeah, sure, take your break, Toby, recover. And then I noticed, okay, if somebody says the opposite thing, like, no, you have to work, then these persons, then run away immediately, because you don't want to work with persons who don't care about your health. And that was crazy. And there I also had thoughts like, I can't do that anymore. I can't keep up to the momentum that I kind of have to control. It always feels like, at least it always feels like that you have a momentum if something works out right now. The problem is, it always feels like that you have to keep a momentum running, and it kind of is. So, and that there I probably had situations where I, at least theoretically, thought about how awesome it would be to have a regular job. Just like going somewhere, getting some money, and then being home again, not thinking about something, then being in free time mode, because we don't really know that. I became better that after work, when I go into another room, then I am at least only like with 10 or 20% of my head still thinking about stuff all the time. And so but it wasn't like a real thought. It was more like, oh, that would probably be something good. But then I realized it probably wouldn't, because it wouldn't satisfy me. So, but besides that, there wasn't like a real consideration of maybe I should do something else, because it's
so no real plan B, although you were so structured in the beginning when you listed, okay, 10 years now, I'm gonna monitor this, and then there was no plan B involved.
There was a plan B for sure, because everything else is way too risky, right? So in the first 7 years, so from 20 to 27 roundabout, I had side jobs all the time. And what I did is I mainly worked at festivals. So at the weekend, I did backlining, sometimes mixing jobs. I built the festivals up and down again. So that was pretty nice, because I had a safe income, which is important for your head. I was still always like at around €0 on my bank account, but I still was able to survive and pay the rents. And every time I made a little bit of money with music, I added a new VST or something to my collection. And so that's something I always did. And I made some good connections there. And I always was like, okay, if everything, I don't know, if I fail, then I can always return there. And later, from I think 25 to 27, I also worked at the theater. Like at the guy in the stage, whatever guy who is like, yo, now we have to turn on this light, and so on and so on. So that was also another backup plan that I built up. So in case I wouldn't make it. So I told you that it took me 7 years. So during these 7 years, I maybe earned a very, very low 4-digit amount of money in the whole time. So I just had to practice, right? My work wasn't worth money yet. It's like a lot of people complain, oh, it's so unfair that you have to work for free. But no, because why should somebody pay you for non-existing skill? And I can say that when I was 23 years old, my money wasn't worth the amount of money it's now. Sometimes there were super small amount back then. Sometimes I remember that I was paid for my first job. I think I was 23 years old or so. And I received, I think, 50 to 100 USD per minute of music, which was insane for back then, because I was like, what the f-? Somebody wants to pay me for making music, for composing music. And I felt like maybe I am a composer, because imposter syndrome, that's something that's a huge, it's another huge topic. But so that was like the case so it was a big rarity that somebody actually had a budget, because I mainly worked with other students, other passionate teenagers or something like that also wanted to learn how to make games. And that's what I did like the whole time. No budget projects, super low budget projects, or where you got royalties, but the games never were released, so it didn't matter. But I knew that I mean, there were so many students. They often are like, yeah, we are two people and we want to make the next World of Warcraft, but twice as big. And no, you won't make the next World of Warcraft, but twice as big as your first game. But I didn't care because I still had an opportunity to learn stuff about actually making game music and trying to make my theoretical knowledge become skill. Because I knew a lot, but when I worked on the first projects, I realized I know nothing. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do, and so it's like you have to get this practical practice to I don't know, become good and build up some knowledge and actual skill, I guess.
Amazing. So you knew early on that you want to focus on video game music because you are so passionate about video games, and then you started to just participate in projects that were unpaid for around 7 years.
Yeah.
And and when was the tipping point of this whole equation? When did projects come in where a substantial amount of money was involved, or the amount of professionalism was more than what it was before?
I mean, like after 5 years or so, maybe this was the first time when it became more frequently that people paid me. And I remember in, I think, 2018, there's somebody reached out to me. I already shared my work at a lot of places, like Facebook. It was a big thing back then. Instagram. Instagram was something I started 3 years ago. And on Reddit, in different forums and stuff like that. And so somebody reached out to me and had collected via Kickstarter 4,000 USD to pay me. And that was crazy because this person collected money to have me. Because before that, I always reached out to persons with different techniques. I tried the classic 1,000 copy-paste mails thing, but then I switched to unique pitches where but yeah, it's a different thing. And so there was something that was so awesome to me that always pushed me. So there were small happenings. It became always a little bit more slowly but steadily. So there wasn't like one 50K euro job. It became a little bit more every time. And then I also worked on a lot of other things. So I wrote for everything. I always knew I want to become a game music composer, but everything is valuable for my work because every time you have to look at an image or at a narrative layer, like at something, and you have to create music for it. I made music for wood and for old ladies jumping on trampolines with their weird shakers. I went, oh, okay, I'm in. It was awesome. And then somebody paid me 100 euros, sometimes 200, and it became a little bit more every time. So, and then this Gilded Shadows project came up, and then other two big projects where I scored, where I had a 60 or 70 minutes score for a book, which was awesome. So we retold the story about this book. And I don't know, it became more and more and more. And then, I don't know, then like in 2018 or so, or early 19, not sure anymore, then I was like, okay, now, then it just became enough that it was pretty much the same amount as the amount of money I earned during that time at this theater. And then I don't remember actually, but it wasn't like one big thing that made me, oh, now I can quit everything. It just felt right at that moment. But it was I don't know, it was a very linear evolution of how much money I earn and how successful I am. And it still is. During the last 5 years, my income roundabout always doubled every single year. And that's good, I guess. I think it's more...
It's amazing.
And I think it's better than just like, I don't know, if I imagine that I would have had an insane job or a viral hit at the age of 23, and then out of nothing would have been successful in that early age. I was stupid when I was 23 years old. That would have been not that healthy and helpful for my career, for sure. Because I don't know, I had this slowly but steady progression, and I had a chance to learn everything from scratch, and it felt right to do it that way.
Interesting. So although you are a person that is maybe a bit shy, or you don't like to be out in those big crowds, you said, you still were very distinct about getting yourself out there. You mentioned Facebook,
Yes.
Reddit, different groups, writing 1,000 people emails, and then going to other methods like dedicated pitches to certain people. And this was always within your plan, or had you been advised to do so, or
No.
was this always just your intrinsic strategy
I
coming of that generation you come from, being now 32, I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There was nobody who instructed me. So back then, like when I started 13, 14 years ago, it wasn't like today that you go to YouTube and there are hundreds of awesome people who tell you how to do it, or who have tips, or like me, who, I don't know, people can write me on Instagram and I can ask me something. I reply to them. It was way harder. You are, I mean, today it's like pretty much a similar situation when you are after school and then you sit there like, okay, now I will become a composer, and then you are like, now what? So like you have no idea what to do, and so I just tried stuff. I remember sitting there and really having no idea what I am supposed to do, and then I just tried everything at once. I think I upload my work to YouTube, for example, since when it came out, 2007 or something. And in Facebook, there's a game developing group. I every Saturday since I think 9 years or so, I post a video where I talk about what I'm doing, because that's something I realized. In the beginning, I had these classic SoundCloud playlists and stuff like that, but nobody cares about only the music. It's not worth anything, because library music or something like that sounds good too. And so what I somehow understood is I have to connect my work with a face to make this whole product become more human, because it's not my music that's the product, but me with my knowledge. So I had to turn on the camera, for example. And in addition to that, I realized, nobody cares about if I only play some music. I have to somehow showcase knowledge. And so in the early years, I didn't always have game music projects to talk about. But I still began to, when I had something, I, for example, took a soundtrack or something, then I wrote a text about what I was doing and why I did what I was doing. So to explain something to other people, and at the same time, if a game developer reads it, they notice, oh, he has knowledge about what it's doing. It's not like random music that we can also buy in libraries, but I showcased music. And when I didn't have a project, then I made projects up. That's what I did a lot in the very early years. But also as an exercise. I hadn't, not like in my Vita, like a fake showreel, not like that, but I took an artwork or something and then I tried to think about a story of this character that I was looking at. I looked at the colors. I made a project up for me. I wrote that down, and then I wrote a concept where I wrote down the instruments I may use and why, what I still do today. And then I wrote a little, I don't know, maybe 3 variants of a leitmotif for this character. And then I was able to showcase this track without the artwork, because we don't steal artworks, and talk about what I was doing for this project I was working on. Just like it was an awesome exercise for me. It was something I had to showcase. And sometimes maybe when it was an artwork of a game developer, I could send this out to this game developer like, hey, look, this is what I did, and here are the reasons why I did that. Maybe consider me that we could work something. Because that way you show like, yo, this is something I can offer to make your project a little bit more awesome, and not like this, it would be great if you could pay me, like to reverse the whole situation, or to turn it around, to actually have something to offer. And that worked. Like it was a great combination. Practicing something, showcasing knowledge, plus maybe reaching out to potential clients at the same time.
Yeah, so you understood that very early on.
Yeah.
That it is important to put yourself out there, and that people can get to know you also as a person.
Exactly. Yes.
And,
yeah.
And on your website, you mentioned this term OST project. What can I understand from that?
Hey, I can tell you that I'm not 100% sure what OST means. I remember that back then, when now as you are asking me, I have no idea. I think it's something like official soundtrack or something, because I don't know. It's always like, I think when you watch YouTube videos, then it's like Star Wars OST, like then it's the soundtrack, but I have no idea what it is. I think it's something soundtrack.
Original soundtrack, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, but
I was just not thinking far enough to get that out of my own. Because I'm also not used to the world of like music production in terms of video games. I'm from the sound effects department, so another question maybe that relates to that. When you now work on games, are you then in close contact with audio designers and sound designers? And what is your involvement also with the dev teams?
It always depends. So my main or my favorite kind of project is like mid-size indie projects from 1 to 20 persons working on it. More like 1 to 10, to be honest. Because today there's a lot of money laying around, and these are the people who are passionate about what they're doing. I had one glimpse into the AAA production. It was cold and heartless, and it changed my goals. I don't want to get there anymore. It doesn't make me happy, and it's all about happiness. So I forgot the question. Maybe.
The involvement. How much are you involved with the dev teams and also sound designers and audio designers?
Yeah, a lot. So it's my workflow kind of is. When we start at the beginning, but I summarize it, then I meet with the game developer, and then I see, okay, sometimes it's at a state where there's only artwork and maybe lore, like a narrative, a bunch of things, or plans for how the colors may look like and stuff like that. And then sometimes we begin there, and then everything evolves together, hand in hand. Sometimes we have like a very rough state already that I can jump into Unreal Engine and test stuff out. And there things begin, because especially in game music, you work a lot with different layers and adaptive stuff that has to react to the player, or can, right? So this opens up a huge amount of possibilities to kind of manipulate the subconscious mind of the audience. And so what I had to learn is how to use Weiss, Fmod, stuff like that. This is middleware that you use to take, I don't know, your different layers of an audio track, and that it makes music become adaptive or reactive or dynamic in the game engine. It's like the middleware between these two things, and that's something you have to learn. And I also know how to use, like in a very like only the essentials, how to work in the Unreal Engine and Unity engine. Just like, because sometimes you have to do the implementation on your own. Sometimes there is somebody who does this, but sometimes not. And it's always like a good thing if you can say, yeah, sure, I can do that. I can do that for you. I can take care of the whole implementation. And another important thing is you have to know what's possible to make use of it, right? So it's something you should think about. Same thing with sound design. I still do that a lot today. If somebody asks me, hey, do you also like to do the sound design? Then I could look at my schedule, think about, do I have enough time for that? Or do I need my full amount of time to focus on the composition? Then I sometimes do that too. But if not, then I talk with the sound designer on a daily basis, because it's both the audio layer, right? So it has to be one big thing. And same with the game developers. Right now I have 2, and it will be 3 again, main soundtrack productions. And I always try to take one day of break. Next day I do 2 updates per week per game, roundabout. And updates means I do something, I take the current state, send it to the client, and then I describe what I was doing and why I did what I was doing. Because that way, I keep track of what I'm doing, right? So just to because you have like hundreds of minutes of music if you count in all the layers and branches and stuff like that. You have to keep track. You have to be very, very structured. I add that to the concept, and then we talk about what I was doing. So it's super close things. We always have hundreds of pages of chat history. When I would look into Discord, I often handle that via Discord plus Google Drive and so on. I would look at all the different channels for different tracks and stuff like that. And so it's one of the main parts of how I work is communication and an awesome feedback chain to make the best possible outcome in the best case, right?
Quick one. Thank you very much for listening up to this point. I really appreciate you being with me on this whole journey, and talking to people like Tobi Weiss is a real pleasure and a real treasure as well, because we see that you need a lot of passion and effort to put in your work in order to succeed in that field that we are in, pro audio, whether it's music or sound effects. Please do me that favor, subscribe to the channel and follow this wherever you listen or watch it. And that's it. Let's go back to the episode. Thank you. It sounds like a lot of work, to be honest. Composing all the music, then having those feedback chains. I know myself from working in the video games industry for 5 years that working in video games is much more heavy meeting based than actually working on the sound, which is not true, for example, working in linear media on movies or stuff like that. So there's a big difference. And on top of all these things that you are doing for multiple projects at the same time, you also do continue with your getting yourself out there, and you have still your YouTube channel and your Instagram. That's also how I found you. How do you manage that? And what is your what is your goal with the social media apart from getting yourself out there?
I would say that today I'm pretty good in scheduling things and in doing stuff, because it's also something that you have to learn. In like 4 or 5 years ago, I often came in situations, especially when I was getting hired more frequently, and I was like, I'll take every single job because I have to do so. That's something you have to learn too, to say no to specific projects. And then I was like in a situation where I had 3 deadlines in front of me and noticed, I scheduled away not enough time, right? So I had these situations, and then I learned something and made it a little bit better. But it's still all about the schedule. I schedule everything. I schedule free time. So everything I do, I schedule it in Google Calendar. Plus, I also have a lot of notebooks laying around all the time. I write down all my thoughts and ideas and stuff like that. Plus, outsourcing. That's also a huge thing. For example, final mixes, final masters, something I don't do anymore. For the rough stuff, sure. For the pre-versions and so on, I still do that. And also, of course, the on-the-fly mixing, the coloring mixing and stuff like that. That's something that happens while music production, because it's a part of that. But that's something I outsourced. And client communication, negotiating and stuff like that. I don't do that anymore. I hate that anyway. I always hated this money talks because I made me felt uncomfortable. And that was the first thing that I outsourced to somebody. I mean, it's hard to find somebody that you really trust, so that you're not ending up still checking your mails on your own every single day. But I found something great. And so it's something that I'm not doing anymore since 3 or 4 years. Just like a pre-selection of emails where I have to get back to, and I always care about the creative stuff and of my schedule, kind of. It's a mix. Some things are scheduled by this person's. Most of the stuff is scheduled by my own. So that's a huge help. To do that, just like, I don't know, take some of the money that you earn and throw it at other people to allow you to focus more on what's like where you are really good at. I mean, I'm good in mixing stuff. I'm okay in mastering stuff, but there are people who only mixed and mastered for 20 years. So it's pretty obvious to me that I should pay these people to do that for me, especially if you learned to trust these people for your specific sound that you are looking for.
Do you want to mention the names of your engineers?
No.
All right.
I want to keep them for my own. It's
okay. So from the social media, I understand you educate people and you also build a community. You get brand collaborations from that.
Yeah.
And is this something you see as a side income, or is it just something that comes naturally by exposing yourself online and you just do it?
I obviously spend a lot of time at that Instagram channel. It's also very structured. I have 2 days per month, sometimes 3 or 4, where I pre-produce everything. All the captions that I write, all the videos that I do, because I want to have this out of my head. Sometimes I have a situation like, oh, that could be interesting. But then everything is set up already. I only have to press 2 keys and it records the stuff that I want via OBS and my camera that's always over there. So yeah, that's also a lot about scheduling. And the way I handle that, Instagram became very big. So I just reacted to that. I noticed, okay, this works. That's interesting. Then I keep doing stuff for that, and it's today also, luckily, not my only one, not my only pillar of where I get jobs, because that would be scary. But it also made possible such awesome jobs, like also big game score production. I was flying around in Europe producing something for Eurovision Song Contest and stuff like that. And this happens because I'm visible at Instagram, and that's like the way to go. It's a win-win situation. I noticed that it's also fun to kind of talk about how it is to be a composer, and also focusing on the negative stuff, to just be myself and 100% honest, because then I don't need to fake something and just can feel good by not, I don't know, lying or telling bull. Just like, I don't know, it's so many people are talking bull, like weird promises and stuff like that. And so, and I noticed, people like that. It helps them, and that felt good. But obviously, it's also mainly product presentation. So, because when I reach out to a game developer via Instagram, or they see me, then I look more professional because I have a lot of followers. It's how it works. It's I don't know. It doesn't make sense, or a little bit maybe, but it's just like it's how it works. And so that's the main bonus that I'm able to, that it leads to interesting other jobs. So that's the main thing why I spend so much time. I would lie if I'd say, I only do that to help other people. It feels awesome, and I love that. And I know so many people in person, like from the people who are following me that are I don't know, there in the comments since 3 years or so when I started to do this more frequently, and that's huge. It's great, but it's not the main reason. And sure, this also led to opportunities of working with brands, and like the biggest ones, which is it still feels so insane to me when I think like how I would think about that maybe 3 years ago or so, that I now work with Native Instruments and so on, that they pay me to do something to present their products, because that's obviously like a great job. But demo tracks, for example, is something I love to do, because it's very close to a training exercise that I do a lot anyway. Taking only 1, 2, or 3 random presets and trying to create a track out of that. Often it sounded horrible, but I did that every week for 7 years or so. 5 random presets of all the instruments that I have, and then I had to manipulate them. I learned new stuff about how instruments sound together, how you can use them in different ways by, as I already said, manipulating them or changing how they sound. And so demo tracks is pretty close. You only are allowed to use this one library and have to make a track out of it. So that's fun, obviously.
Interesting. Yeah, you seem not only very passionate and structured, but also very determined to put in the work and to get it really done and to make the best out of your potential. So that's really impressive.
Yeah, it's what you have to do. Sometimes I talk to people and they're like, and then I stopped working on the soundtrack after revision number 3 because I didn't want to work anymore. And that's something I really don't understand, because everything I throw out into the world, and even if it's music for a chair or something, it's what I did. And I went in to a no-budget production, let it say this way, to a no-budget production. I went in with the same amount of energy and will to make the best possible outcome as today for a big paid production, because it's no difference to me. And that's why a lot of these people that I work with for no budget returned years later, but with a budget, because they remembered, this guy was passionate. He wasn't like super awesome back then with 20 years old, but I showed that I'm passionate about the whole thing, that I really want to do that. And that's something, it's also a pretty important thing, I guess, is when people asking me, how can I what's the shortcut to make it in the music industry? Then I often feel probably you shouldn't try, because for me it was always the most fun thing to do. I analyzed dozens of soundtracks. I already said that. Reconstructed them. Tried to understand what this composer did in the game. What instrument? Why did he use this instrument and stuff? And it was fun to me. I wasn't paid to do that. It was just like if I had another job, then I would have done that in my free time because I had to. When I was playing a game, I wanted to understand what this composer did, and so I didn't have to force myself to go all in, but it was kind of, I don't know, I wanted to do that anyway. And I think that's kind of one of the, maybe not a must have, but there should be a huge amount of passion for this whole thing so that I could say it's worth trying. Because without passion, I mean, I said that I had a side job for 7 years and almost zero money the whole time. If you only want to make music to I don't know, to become super rich as fast as possible, then do something else. It's probably not the wisest idea to go in only for the money because it could always fail.
Yeah. Talking about money, do you have, apart from outsourcing work to others that you are like so fancy of doing yourself, do you have other plans of scaling your business in terms of hiring other composers maybe or training people to build a bigger team or something like that?
No. If everything would stay how it is right now, I would be super lucky. Happy. And also lucky, actually. It was the wrong word, but it makes sense. So right now I earn enough to put aside money for, I don't know, the age, like when I get old and stuff like that. And I also have super fun projects to work on. And it could become even more, but I mean, there's still space to be more successful and stuff like that. And it feels tempting, but I also try to become better in appreciating what you already have, because it's super hard anyway. As soon as you achieve something, that's how my brain works at least, you get used to it, and then it's like, okay, now I want to get this or that. Now I want to become even bigger. And it's so hard to get out of this spiral of not appreciating stuff that I sometimes, I don't know, every morning I try to stand here a little bit, look at this space, remember how my little laptop in my 17 square meters flat looked, and that's what I always dreamed of. And there's always stuff that would be super cool to do, but none of these further things is a must-have for me to be happy. And I think that's an important, balance that I had to achieve, to still have goals, because otherwise, why are you doing this? But to also appreciate what you already have. So I don't want to hire more composers or something, because that wouldn't be fun. I want to make music, right? So I want to talk to the person. That was fun. Maybe stuff like a full-time assistant who helps me with more stuff, like to take care of more stuff that I don't know, like scheduling and so on and so on. Maybe something like that. Right now, the person is working more like half-time for me, because it's totally fine. But besides that, no ambitions to get a army of composers like Hans Zimmer or something like that does. Right? But maybe that changes, right? You never know. Maybe in 10 years, maybe in 1 year, I have no idea what I do in 1 year or in half a year. We talked about that.
That's already wise. I mean, you have both sides, I guess. You have the planning side and the structured side.
Yeah.
But you are already wise enough to say what you just said. I don't know what's next year, what I'm gonna aspire to next year.
Yeah.
I recall when I started at Ubisoft 5 years ago.
Oh, cool.
I was talking to my mentor back in Berlin, my mixing mentor, and told him, okay, now I'm moving to Düsseldorf for this gig, working in the video games, and I think, I will definitely stay there for 10 years. And then he said, Bastian, I don't think so. I said, why? You might get bored, or you might want something else in the meantime.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was like, no, man, this is not possible. I have this plan now. And then I think 1 or 2 years later, my whole worldview changed already, and I was reflecting back to what he said. And when I met him again, I said, "Yeah, okay, now
You
I
were
know
right.
what you meant." Yeah, you were right.
Yeah, it would be terrifying to me if I would think, let's say, classic old school Blizzard from 1998 would hire me, like to work for something, I don't know, like in addition to Diablo 2, my favorite game. But they would say you have to do that for the next 10 or 15 years. Then I don't know. Then it's the most horrifying thing of our job that you have no idea what you'll do in 2 years, but it's also the most awesome part. And so I'm not gonna lie, I still sometimes have these nights where I lay in my bed and I'm kind of panicking because I think about what am I doing? What am I going to do in 20 years? And then where you get into this thought spiral and you can't sleep. But these nights became way less every single year since I started. So, and that's a good thing. But because it's also a great thing to have no idea what you're doing in 1 year. Because otherwise, if I would already know, I would do this job until I'm 70 years old or whatever the age for retirement will be when I'm old, 80 years probably.
Yeah, we will see.
But what's also an option, so I'm trying to avoid that, but maybe I'll not be successful anymore in 1 year. Maybe I have to quit this whole thing someday. So it could always happen. You shouldn't focus on such thoughts too often because then, I don't know, then you could simply stop living. But it should still be something to have in the very back of your mind.
Yeah, I totally agree. A technical question regarding the royalties you mentioned. What is your take on being in those societies like GEMA in Germany or other royalty collecting societies internationally?
I don't care. So I don't. I mean, I am at GEMA because I had to do that for a bunch of song productions, just like linear. Like a band has a song and then I'm making instrumental, something like that. But I have so less like little entries there, and for my game music and stuff like that, it was never relevant. I always had, for example, if you release a game on Steam, then it's important to you that you most of the time I go for 50, sometimes 100% of, for example, the sales of the soundtrack as a DLC or something. That's valuable for you. Or if you sell the soundtrack on CD or as a download. So that was always more important to me. Maybe I lost some money already by not being at GEMA or something like that. But I don't know. It was never interesting to me. I can't even say why.
I ask because I heard from a friend of mine that it is maybe even problematic if you are in one of those organizations when you work for games.
I was going to say that.
Did you have ever issues because that?
No.
Because you are in the game up and you can still do your contracts with the gaming companies and.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could become a problem if I don't know, also type in the song data and so on in GEMA, but I'm only a half member or something like that, so it's not a problem in that case.
Maybe in the AAA world that is more relevant than in indie games. Is that possible or?
Might be the case, but my little AAA experience was for the Chinese market. So I have no idea how it works in the. So I never worked for the big players like Blizzard or I always say Blizzard. But yeah, so I have no idea.
Ubisoft, we can name Ubisoft.
Wow. Imagine working for Ubisoft. You don't want to do that. It's I don't know. I hate the games all these big AAA developers create today. They ruined Diablo for me, which is a personal thing, and I just don't want to be a part of that. And that's something good because I think 10 years ago I would have been like, I would always take the better paying job. But it seems zero attractive to me anymore to score the next Assassin's Creed with, again, a twice as big world where nothing happens. And I don't know, I don't want to do that.
Makes sense. Um, I appreciate your passion also about the whole topic of gaming and playing games yourself.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I was never that passionate about video games. I stopped playing in my teenage years already, and
Okay.
then I only was confronted with video games again when I started working at Ubisoft.
Ah, interesting.
And
Okay. It's,
so it's very different for me. I'm much more passionate about movies, and I still appreciate the whole process of game audio and that I was able to learn that on a AAA level. And all this experience I gained from that, and
yeah, you learn a
also
lot. Sure.
working on video games is also great fun for me. But maybe it was because I was only focusing on the AAA games to get back into playing games. You know, I was always so frustrated playing Assassin's Creed or other games
Yeah, probably.
because it was so difficult for me to not feel uncomfortable because I felt that I'm stupid. You know.
Yeah, they're not
So
fun. It's all the games I play today, so most of them. Elden Ring, obviously, is one of the exceptions where AAA makes awesome stuff. Or Nintendo. I'm a huge fan of Nintendo, and they are so weird doing their own thing, like on another track where where I don't know the big players, Microsoft, Sony, and so on, are doing their stuff. They are doing their things. I don't know, working 7 years on the new Mario game and then polishing the out of it, and then it's awesome. So that's like every Mario or Nintendo release is something I still buy blind. Almost everyone. So there are exceptions. The new sports game, but that's too much detailed talk about Nintendo games right now. But beside that, I love indie games. I play indie games the whole time. I just they are so awesome indie games, and it's probably because at least, I mean, I can't say that, but based on my experience of working with indie developers, or also like kind of indie developers that still have a publisher, but are like smaller teams, they are also passionate gamers. And sure, these people working at Blizzard or something, all these employees and programmers and stuff like that, they probably are fans and passionate too, but they simply get drained out and just, I don't know, the burn through rate in these companies is super high. So I think 30% of people who worked at, I don't want to drop numbers, a high amount of people who worked at, for example, Ubisoft quit the gaming industry after that. And that's not because it's a super fun thing to work there. And so it's such a toxic thing how big game companies handle their employees at the moment. And, but yeah, that's, not that necessary for our podcast here at the moment. But that sucks.
No.
And that's why I work for, or why I play and want to score awesome indie games and not support the big Ubisofts and so on of this world. And yeah. But
Interesting.
I also want to say that I still also understand everybody who is, I don't know, I don't want to be like, oh, these colleagues of me who score Ubisoft games, it's awesome that they came so far and they are probably way more successful than I am. So it's just like, it's only my point of view. I never want to generalize something. So, or like, oh, that is how you should do it. It's only how I like to do it, right? It's important to say this, I guess.
Yeah, thanks for pointing it out like this. Totally makes sense. That leads me also to my last question for you, because I'm interested in what do you wish for yourself as a composer for the future, and also what do you wish for the industry?
The main goal is that I become a little bit better. I mean, it's also I want to, I don't know, maybe become a little bit more successful. Maybe make the spotlights on my name become more bright and stuff like that. That's always something that's great, sure. But I also want to make sure that I become better in handling this whole work-life balance thing that's so weird as a self-employed artist, because it's kind of like a merged thing. And it's even harder. So, and to avoid or to make sure that I continue having fun on what I'm doing, because that's a huge task. It's so easy to lose having fun. And right now I'm doing pretty good in I don't know, maintaining, having fun, and that's the main goal, honestly. Anything else is, I don't know, unpredictable anyway. I'll continue doing my best, and I can only do my best if I'm having fun. I have no idea, to be honest. Do you have something? I don't have something in my mind right now.
It's always depending on where you look at. When we look at the people you mentioned working in the big corporations, then I wish for the industry that we look more for not having people burned out and these things, and also, to be fair with payments and stuff like that, because I felt that the amount of money that is being made in the video games industry and the amount of how much people are being paid as a salary is not really fair, because all the creativity comes from us, and only the people in the higher ranks of the board members and whatnot earn real money, and all the rest is just paying bills with their salary. So there's no money in being employed at any of those companies.
It's crazy.
Maybe starting at middle management, then you can have a little bit of saving here and there, and
but
only
there
top
you don't.
management.
Exactly.
This makes really the big numbers.
But that's part of the problem. The people who manage these giant games companies or whatever are managers. And it makes sense that it is that way. But some people sitting at the biggest chairs at these companies never touched a game in their life. And they know how to run a company, and then people become only numbers and stuff like that. And in a perfect world, there would be people who are passionate about games at these top positions again, but I know that that's not realistic. That's not how it works. It's just like it's utopic, and so. But I mean, that's one of the main reasons why I'll also always try to not be employed somewhere. So I'll just stay on my own, so that I'm able to react and to decide with what kind of person I want to work or not. Because that's also, that was one of the most important things I learned. That I learned that it's possible to say no, that it worked. That was crazy for me, because I was like, wow, I'm too busy. I can't accept this right now. And more important, B, that you should say no to projects if you have a bad feeling about it. If you maybe don't like this person, if you don't like the project, if you have some kind of bad feeling, and then the amount of money that's offered shouldn't be an option. Of course, only in a state where you already have enough jobs, but maybe even before that. But that's a too complex thing to get more into detail right now. It's about, because I had some projects where I felt so bad the whole time because of persons that I had to talk with pretty much every single day, and that's something that works against this plan of maintaining, having fun. And then that was super hard to do something good, because I always had a little bit of stomach pain when working on the whole thing.
Totally makes sense. Thank you very much for taking the time talking to me. Also knowing that this podcast is new, I really appreciate it. And I wish you all the best for the future, and may all your dreams and goals come true and be achieved, and even more than that, stuff that you don't expect happens.
That was a very friendly last sentence, and I wish the same for you.
Thanks.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate that you listened up until the end. If you haven't hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you watch or listen this, please do so now, because it helps the channel to grow, and I see a lot of value in Pro Audio Secrets for the whole Pro Audio community, especially to people who want to start out in the industry and looking for their first role or their first paid gig. Definitely look into finding your own voice in sound. That can change over time, but look at what it is now and then take a step towards that and try to elevate this thing that you have within you and get the sound out of yourself, your unique sound. That is something you need to find in order to succeed in pro audio, especially these days. And again, this can change over time, but you have to start looking within yourself what's really the thing that you can provide for the world in terms of your sound, okay? If you're looking for more advice like that, please feel free to reach out to me via DM on Instagram, comment the word industry, and then you can book a free mentorship call with me. We're also building Pro Audio Academy up from the ground right now, and you can join that as a beta tester, or later on, once it's rolled out, you can just come in and learn with us. Thanks for watching. Maybe watch another one now or later. See you then. Thanks. Peace, the Foley teacher.